Hello and welcome to another Del Boy blog. And yes, I still haven't sorted out the numbering yet, but let's say that this is blog 54, year 2, blog 2, dated the 5th of March 2023. Yes, um, even in comic books with Spider-Man as my favourite character, he's up into the nearly 900 range, but they stopped at a certain number in volume 1 and then started off with a number 1 in volume 2. Then they started off with a number 1 in volume 3. When they decided to get to the magic numbers, the hundreds, the 800th issue, the 700th issue, they go back to what they call legacy numbering. So you could say in legacy numbering, my blog is number 54. Um, I don't know. Marvel's so convoluted, but it's funny to think about those lines. And I just want to say thanks for watching my blog last week. I had a number of good comments. I'm still sort of like sorting out how things are going to be. I did look back at the recording and there was some stuttering. I still need to sort that out. I've installed something called Logi Tuning in a hope that that might help. For this particular recording, I've dropped the resolution to 720p. I don't think it'll be too bad. I've still got this other camera view. Yay! Hello. Nice. So, I've got an option that I can use there. And I've added a number of little features to say, look, when you're not using the camera, deactivate. So you might see some little pauses and gaps in there. But it's a work in progress. I was quite happy with how things went other than that stutter. And of course I can see when the camera is going to break up. I'm looking at the sort of like live feed now, and there's no stutter, but I can see it when it breaks up. So when that happens, I can of course deactivate and reactivate, so hopefully it won't be too much of a distraction. So how's my week been? Well, it's been quite complex. As you know, I'm on a phased go back to work. The chair did not arrive Monday. So I went to work on Monday, and as I told my manager, of course I want to do as many hours as I can, but I also don't want to push myself so I get too tired. So I felt really bad. So I got there at 20 past 8 in the morning, and I started to feel tired around about 1ish. And it was the driving there and the driving back that really gets to me. So I got back home and I thought, look, I've got these options of doing 4 half days or 2 full days. Let's see how much I can possibly do now that I'm back home. I still don't have my chair, so I can't sit in my chair for very long. So I'll sit in my chair for another hour and just go through some of the documents that I've got to read. So it got to about 2 o'clock-ish, and I stopped. And I tell you what, I must have fell asleep in my chair 3 times that afternoon, so I must have been really, really tired. And then on Tuesday, which is another supposed to be half day, I thought, I can't drive to work. It's too tiring. I'll sit in my chair for a couple of hours, because the new one hadn't arrived. And I did 8 till 10. Now, if you add up all the hours from yesterday and the day before, and that day, that's 8 hours. So that was really, really good. I told my manager exactly what was going on. Totally fine with it, because I'm still waiting for me to get the admittance into the programs that I use. The security clearance is filled in, but it has to be checked and it has to be agreed, signed off, and that could take weeks and weeks, and possibly months. But there is what they call a special dispensation, where they can actually get you access earlier because you've worked for the company before, and they can give you special clearance rights. So that's what I'm hoping for on Monday, that I've got my special clearance. It got to Wednesday, and on Wednesday the chair arrived. Absolutely fantastic, but it didn't arrive until 11 o'clock. So I did a couple of hours up till 10, waited for the chair. It arrived dead on 11. It took an hour and a half to get the chair into this room, because the room dimensions, I don't know if you can see on this camera, we'll drop to this one, is 9 feet wide by, I think it's 18 foot long. And with my bed and my synthesizer on either side of the room, it's hard to get through that door that you can just see, which I'm looking at now, just there. And so really it was a bit of a faff. It took till 12:30, and then I had to adjust the chair, which took it till about 1 or so o'clock. And then I had my last meeting on that for that day, and said, look, I've done over the 4 hours today, but I'm, after looking at the other days, and the fact that I'm only looking at emails as well, I think I've decided that I'll take the half day that I owe you as a holiday, which I'm allowed to do, and we will base next week, with the new chair now arrived, as being the 4 hours per day each day, unless I really want to push it on the final day on Wednesday, where I might do a day, and that might be a good thing. They agreed. They're all very good about that. I think as long as you're doing the hours, they're not really too desperately concerned with. So other than that mess, I had my MOT for my car. That got through on Friday, no problems. Weird thing about that is that they didn't want me to book it in. They said, can you come down at 5 to 8? It'll be the first car we put in, but you'll need to leave the car with us. So, of course, I got up early, drove the car down to the garage, gave it to them, and then I walked round my town's precinct. I did the loop 4 times. Yeah, 4 times. It was about 2.5 miles. Measured on my watch, and then I got the call to say, come and collect your car. Gave them the money, was very happy that it had passed, drove home. So that was Friday, and on the Thursday I went to see an eye doctor. It's different to Specsavers. I actually went to see a clinic where they practice on eyes. It was in the hospital. The only thing he could see, he didn't see anything problems with the cornea, he didn't see any problems with the pupil. I told him what was going on. He agreed it's probably eye strain, all that sort of stuff. He did notice, though, that there's a lack of fluids in the bottom part of my eyelid. Usually a deficiency in, what do they call it now? That fish thing. I forgot what they call, Onyx 3 or something. Can't quite remember. And he basically said, get some tablets, vitamin tablets, that'll be fine. He gave me a cream that I can use for 2 weeks, and then he told me of a product that I need to go and get, which is a sort of mist spray that sprays on the top of your eyelids and drips into your corner of your eyelids. This stuff was £16. I hope it bloody well works. And what he basically said is that when you start to feel that irritability, when it starts to get blurry, spray this on. It will drip into your eyelids, but use the cream in the morning to give yourself that extra lubrication that your bottom eyelid needs. So I think I'm in a good place. Now we've got sort of like that out of the way, I'll start off like I normally do, by saying, thanks very much for watching, keepers of the faith, which is what I always call you guys. And we'll start off with the news, shall we? So there's a bit about the war and a few other little bits and bobs. So I've written a few things down. So the war. Russia could run out of money as soon as next year and needs foreign investment. Now this is coming from an Oleg Delapaska. Can't see what I mean. I'm useless with names. He said this at an economic conference. Cracks are starting to show in the economy, and Western sanctions could escalate this further. Russia's economic prospects are contingent on what's going to happen in Ukraine. Well, that was the whole point. The whole world is putting these sanctions against Russia to stop their drip feed of money. That means it's going to hit their economy. They can't then put money into the war, and therefore you stop the war. What do you expect? It was a sort of a nothing report, really, but I thought I brought it up because the other thing that was happening is, while all that was going on, more and more tanks are now starting to arrive for Ukraine, and Russia have started to up the attack on one of the towns that they lost last year. They won it, then lost it. They're winning it back again because their strategy is to hit a particular city in Ukraine that would be a strategic advantage for them. So the more that they keep doing this, the more weapons they're going to require and the less money Russia's going to have. So I'm just hoping that this will speed things up. But it did say next year. Shame. Now, this is something that personally happened to me and was sort of like on the news yesterday. Yes, I've labelled it sonic boom. Yes, a sonic boom or explosion was heard by residents of Leicestershire. It was also heard across Northamptonshire and Oxfordshire. Yes, Oxfordshire. Me. Plane spotters suggested the sound may have come from an RAF Typhoon fighter scrambled to help another aircraft in distress. RAF's Airbus called Voyager was being tracked by people using a website called Flight Radar 24 to find out what the hell was going on. If you want to know, a sonic boom is heard when you break the sound barrier, which is, I think, 761 miles per hour. So yes, I was doing my walk. I just passed this guy who was washing his car. You know, as you are, you don't speak to anybody, you just sort of acknowledge and go, oh look, he's washing his car, it looks very nice. Got to the end of just about 3/4 to the end of the street, and this bang happened. It was it really was like an explosion. I turned round to him and he went, like me, he went, got a bloody clue, you know what I mean? I thought my mum had blown her house up. So I started to walk home. I kept looking to see if I could see smoke coming from the distance, you know, as you're walking back home. Got home and I said to my mum, did you hear that boom? And she went, I don't hear nothing. I'm deaf, you know that. That's sort of the way my mum speaks to me if she's having a bad day. And it was just really funny. Then, of course, across the news, Sky and everybody had all picked it up. It started to appear on the news. So it was sort of like a little bit of a local item for me. I thought that was quite funny, really. I haven't looked to see whether anybody has actually correlated whether there was another aircraft in distress. But, of course, I do these things quite early on Sunday. And I thought it was just an interesting news story. So what do we get to now? We get to the shout outs, don't we? So as you know, anybody that actually is nice and writes a comment or asks a question, I believe deserves a shout out. So hopefully I've got them all. It's a bit hard to capture them when you've done some other things as well. But here they are, not in any particular order, but thank you very much, guys. They are Martroid, Down the Rabbit Hole, Jambon, Colin Jones. I get this wrong, don't I? Magda Kozariazak. Oh my god. I'm going to get destroyed, really. I'm really going to pig that person off. Robert's Retro Gaming, Wee Bob Art, Steve's Gaming, Milfy Swimbuckle, David's Retro Gaming Played Badly, Ian Batchelor and Denny all commented on the blog. And then we've got Scott Breon, Ponders Retro Goodness, Steve Paperboy and LFC Gamer and Vlogs who commented on my video I did for my 8-bit years, which was on Bruce Lee. So I really had an interesting week doing some videos this week. Bruce Lee was a fun one for me. It was one that I thought needed to be done quite early, because not only have I got to do my gaming years in a fashion that I believe I should be doing it in, I also like to do it at a time where something comes into my mind. Now, when I was choosing the game, the first thing I thought about was, did I buy that on tape or did I buy that on disc? And then as soon as disc came into my brain, I thought to myself, I know exactly what my first couple of discs were on the Commodore 64, and Bruce Lee just happened to be the one that came to mind. There were obviously a couple that I bought very early on in 1984, but Bruce Lee came to mind, and I thought, that's a classic. It gets a bad rep sometimes by being dated now, and some people it's fell out of their favourites list. But to me, it will always be there. I put too many hours into it and had too much fun that I decided, nope, that was going to be the one that I did next. And Robert sent me a very nice, interesting remark about it, saying that he's just done the sort of like follow-up, which is sort of like an unofficial follow-up. It's sort of like an extra levels type one. And I explained to him, I'm so glad, I'm looking forward to doing that. I'm glad in a way that I didn't push the two together, because it makes it more interesting for me to watch his take on it. We both have different opinions, Robert and I, and even with Steve I have a different opinion, and Martroyd, in the fact that the more I get to know what you guys are sort of like planning, the more I'll sort of like steer away from it. Who really wants to see Robert do Bruce Lee and me do Bruce Lee in the same week, 2 days apart from each other? There's very little that you're going to learn other than watching the fun of watching each of us play. I still stick by that, but I do understand, who cares? If it's something that you want to do it. And I totally agree with that as well. It's one of those difficult ones. I just think that I much prefer to offer something new and do that one a month down the line or a couple of months down the line. You still get it. It's just that it's not in your face the same week. You know what I mean? And I'm sure I've gone well over the top with that. So what do we do next? We do the questions. Yes, let's get some of these questions out the way. The camera doesn't seem to have stuttered, so thank you very much for bearing with me with this. So he's put, hi Dal, firstly I love the new angles you get on OBS. Phone picture looks really crisp. Let's just check that and see if it's still crisp. Nice. Yes, still crisp from what I can see. And he thought it was a great new format. He was interested in the earthquake news. Yes, remember I said last week that Wales suffered an earthquake. Yeah, that was interesting. And then he was starting to answer some of the questions that other people have put. Thanks again, Dan, for answering my question. You're right, the smells and emotion of an era could never be replicated these days. I've brought a new dungeon crawler on Steam called Vaporum for $2.99. Definitely a game on the Legends of Grimrock engine. Now, I'm going to look at that one. I'm so glad that some people have started to say what they're starting to play and what they're starting to watch, because I would probably have missed that. Steam's one of those ones that uses an algorithm that says, because of games you've played, you might like this. And not necessarily is everyone there. So that's great. He 100% agreed with Milfy regarding 3D for the period and that it ages stuff. That's great. I think we all agreed with that one. What he's watched on TV. The last episode of the brilliant The Terminal List. He's now finished. I looked that up now, Denny. I might watch that. That's that Chris Pratt 10-episode season thing, isn't it? I did see it. I've bookmarked it. It's one of those things that I'm going to watch. Amazingly, Star Trek Picard Season 3 is absolutely stunning. I won't spoil it for for everyone, but an old enemy is back. Yes, now, I have watched 2 episodes of Picard Season 3. It is much improved over the other seasons so far, but then again, it is quite early. And the only thing that I'm a little bit upset about is that, to appease the fans, the music in it, especially the beginning titles and the end titles, are taken from Star Trek First Contact, if I remember rightly. And they only mention a musician that does the incidental music. There's no thanks. There's no this end credit theme is taken from that particular film, Star Trek First Contact. It is a Jerry Goldsmith score. I think a nod to him would have been nice. So I will say that about Star Trek Picard. But yes, I'm really enjoying that. The Last of Us, really enjoying this. But again, let's stop there's gay people out there. Yes, I get it. It's been there through the 80s, so please stop this woke stuff. Yeah, I think it was okay. The 3rd episode showing the, the the story that was going on at the very early days of this infection, where 2 guys meet up, and basically he fell into a pit, became a friend, then became a lover, and then they both had a pact at the end to die together. Very emotional story. But then to keep having that repeated in other parts of the story, you only need to be told once, and I totally agree with that. So this week's episode, yes, there was a moment between, well, to the main girl star in it this week, and what happened at the very early stages when she got bit. Again, there is a lesbian kiss in it. I don't have a problem with any of this. It's just that you don't need it in your face all the time. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, I totally agree with that. And finally, a great film on Netflix called Devotion, I think it says. Trailblazing black naval aviator Jesse Lee Brown forges a life and death bond with wingman Dom Hudner as they fly into danger during the Korean War. That sounds good. I'm going to have to write that one down because I did bookmark the others, but I haven't bookmarked that one. Topic. You've really hit my nostalgic heartstrings with Mr. Ben. I've seen this numerous times. I remember as a young lad on Sunday mornings getting up at 7 a.m. in the mornings to watch it, the show before and after. This was Wake Up Sunday with Dana, I think a religious program. Oh my God, see, this is the thing, you've opened things up to me. Sunday, yes. I used to wake up and we used to be at school, at primary school, and we'd have what they call RE, religious education. And I was at Sunday school. And later on in life, when I was getting up to work on a Sunday sometimes, I'd turn the telly on and it would be religious education programs. Songs of Praise was always in the afternoon, but there would be religious education programs on in the morning. And Dana, yes, the little Irish singer and politician, did religious education programs. Yeah, she won the Eurovision Song Contest in 1970 with All Kinds of Everything. Yeah. Amazing how your memory works. So he's got a question, right? Would you be interested in buying full reprints of the original A4 copies of Crash and Zap? I'm sure they would sell like hotcakes for the retro community. Fusion Retro Books have the full copyright to these, so I wouldn't say it was out of the question. Interesting one, because going back to my comic days, when a comic came out and it was then out there, they did what they call reprints, and they called them things like Marvel Tales or Tales to Astonish or whatever, and then reprint whole stories. And in some of those stories, they'd even rewrite some of the dialogue for the time. I wasn't happy about that, but it was nice that you could buy a comic that you could no longer get, and if your friends had it, they had a bargain, because as the years progress, comics have gone up in value, so they're worth an awful lot. Magazines less so. There is less emphasis on a magazine that came out in the 80s that's worth any money in the 2000s. I think there are obviously some, and I'm not saying that there isn't. I'm just saying that there is probably less demand. Would I buy them? Well, I've still got them, so I probably wouldn't. But if there was a battered version that I've got, I would. And the other reason for it as well is it would make scanning easier as well if I wanted to bring it into a video. If it was priced correctly, maybe I would. But I've no doubt in my mind that if an A5 issue is £3.99 and they're going to reprint it in the proper A4 format, the price is bound sure to be a fiver or more, and I might bulk then at the price. I think there's a market, and I think I possibly would take up the offer of buying it again. Yes, I probably would. It's one of those strange ones, because I don't know how long I'd keep that up, whether I'd buy a binder, get 12 issues and stop at one binder's worth. I don't know. I think it'd be really good as a mini-series, yes. Say, why not release them one issue for a whole year, do a specific binder for that year, and at the end you've then got a binder's worth of the first 12 issues, because I think the first 12 issues are what most people remember, and therefore they have a nostalgic appeal for it. So I'm just changing what you say there a little bit, Denny, by saying, yes, I would be interested, but I think I'd probably be interested in a mini run of the first 12. That would be great. So we move forward. Thank you very much, Denny, for that. Absolutely wonderful. So we move to Milfy Swimbuckle. Okie dokie. Question for you. So as you know, Milfy's done a question for me, I think, every week. And I don't think I could get anywhere without him, to be quite honest. It's absolutely fantastic. Question for you. Now that you've been waffling for a year, what do you like and dislike about your channel? And if you could start again from scratch, would you do anything differently? Question mark. Just a bit of product placement. Thanks very much, guys. Now, that's an interesting one, because I've got to the end of the year and I've changed the format slightly, and I'm testing the bed out on whether I think it's a good format or not. The good news about doing something that you did last year, and you can look at it, is you can see bits that really weren't working. I still strain over how long I think a blog should be. This is a weekly one, so I get everything that's happened in the week out the way in this blog, and depending on the questions it goes on a bit more, depending on what I've got to say it goes on a bit more, but I do look at, when I look at the analytics, some people turn off after about 10 minutes, some 30 minutes, so I strain over that. So what do you like and dislike about your channel? Well, there's nothing that I really dislike. There's bits that take up a lot more prep than others. The news bit is always a drag for me, but I do it because I want to date stamp it, so I'm not going to remove that, guys, because this really is not only a blog for you, but it's also a blog for my family, and I want them to know what was going on in the world that made me think along the way that I did this week. And then I go into things like the questions, which always bring back nostalgia, and then I say what I'm watching and what I'm reading, which is important to my family, probably to you guys as well, because you want to know whether there's anything interesting to watch, and if I like it, you might like it, or if I'm playing a game, I might, and so forth. I also might hear about something that's coming out shortly that you might be interested in. And then we sort of end on a topic, or I show you what stuff I've bought this week. I think I wouldn't want to add any more, and I don't think I'd want to take those stuff away. I'm going to gauge it, Milfy. Maybe you can tell me. Do you think it's too long? Do you think it's too short? I'm coming back with the answer really that because I'm only in the second week of a new year of blogs, that I think I've got the right balance at the moment that I'm trying with, and we'll see how we are. As an added extra down, oh my god, here we go. Here's a dead easy quote that we ourselves should live our lives by from a TV show that I'm sure you'll get. Can you tell me what show this is from? Added extra points if you can read the quote out in something of the actor's voice. The quote is, I will not be pushed, filed, stamped, indexed. Right. Briefed, debriefed, or numbers. My life is my own. Right. That's The Prisoner from the 60s. One of my favourite shows. You're a git, Milfy. You know that for a fact. Can I do it in his voice? And I've got to look at the screen as well. Hang on. Let's go to this camera. See if I can do it from here. And the writing is incredibly small, by the way. I will not be pushed, filed, stamped, indexed, briefed, debriefed, or numbered. My life is my own. Oh, the things I get I have to do. Patrick McGowan. What a character. What an actor. I won't say any more than that. Hopefully you've got some enjoyment out of that. I don't know how much. So I might watch that one back. I don't know. Not sure. So we'll move forward a little bit here. And see if I've got some more questions. Yes, we get to Colin Jones. He says, nice new look, and I see you're getting to grips with OBS. Oh, you think so? But thanks very much. I do believe I'm making progress, but we'll see. I did not feel anything in the earthquake, and neither did anyone in my house. We were right on the edge. To be fair, all right, so yeah, he's bullet pointing things. To be fair, Gyrus is way up there on any system. Fantastic game. It's because of some of the things that we talked about in the past. I don't think Aka R would make a good arcade game. It does make a good home game. Although not working on the Steam Deck yet. I'd agree with that, yeah. I've played it a bit more now. I'm still enjoying it. And I think Jeff Minter's done an interesting spin. And I do also agree. I think it works better as a home game. But I think that was his intent. I don't think there's going to be a limited run of it. So, question for the next blog. If you were given £500 to spend on anything you want for yourself right now, what would you get? Ooh. Now, I've obviously not too bad with money. I've got some money put by. I will get a Mister at some point. I've talked about my PC needs to be... I need to draw a line on the PC that I'm using at the moment and start again, much in the same way that Steve has done, although Steve had to do it from a necessity point of view. So, with the graphic cards coming down in price, I'll rule out buying the graphic card right now because I've been told that next month the prices are dropping. Whether that's true or not, I'm not sure. But everything seems to be green lit that that's going to happen. So what I mean by a drop is by at least £100. So what was considered $4.99 is going to be $3.99 and so forth. But of course there'll be less of a drop as you keep going down the prices. So I'd definitely buy a Mister if somebody give me 500 quid right now. But I'd also consider taking my mum and I on a little holiday, because I think my mum misses going on the little excursions that she used to have with my dad. I'd certainly take 500 quid and get on a flight to America and go on a fly drive. I'd do that in a drop of a heartbeat. But I have to think now that my mum is now not in a good way. And I'd like to fill her days with things that she'd like. How's that as an answer, Colin? I think we have to think sometimes, don't we, of our families. Um, so that's definitely something I would have to consider. Um, So then we move to Wee Bob Art. Thanks very much, Wee Bob Art, for your question and always commenting and supporting me. Great to listen to along, Del. Question for next time. You always talk about Steve and in-game deaths. Do you have a favourite death sequence, as morbid as this is? Obviously, Mortal Kombat had those, but I'm probably thinking more along the lines of Ghost and Goblins, where you lose your armour, then just burst into a pile of bones. All the best for this week and beyond. Thank you so much. And yes, what can I say? The reason that I give Steve such a hard time in that and death sequences is not the death sequence in the game itself. It's just that when you watch a stream like Mainmeister's or a stream like Steve's, you just love it when they die for the most awfulest of reasons. You know, like a creature just suddenly respawned on the screen, and you'd spent a good 5 minutes getting to that point. Now, if you watch Mainmeister, he used to have a saying. He used to go, "Ah, bollocks!" Every time he died, he went, "Ah, bollocks! Ah, bollocks!" And it used to become like a catchphrase. So with Steve, and I just go, I know that you're having a bad time, Steve, when you just keep dying. It's like, ah, I will get past it. Ah, you know, it's that. It's not. I like seeing him die. It's just the fun to know this is not going well for your stream or your recording, and then you're having a real bad time trying to get past this point, and you go from being a very person with no swearing to an all-out swearfest, you know, type things. That's what I like. Favourites. I think we can't ignore the fact that a death sequence from Dragon's Lair is fantastic to watch a couple of times because it really is Don Bluth's cartoon. So the death sequences there were fun, but they got repetitive. Rolling Thunder. Yeah, a favourite of Mainmeister's. One I definitely like. Not only has it got those graphics that we love and a snappy sort of like spy shooting run and gun type feel to it, when you die, he sort of collapses to the floor, sort of like, I don't know if he just grabs his neck or something, but he collapses in a certain way, like to maximum death effect. You know, if you were to tell an actor you're going to die and they eke out the death sequence, oh, for never going to walk with my cousins again. Farewell, world, you cruel people, and fall over, you know. There's a sequence that sort of like is not slow, but it can be quite fun to watch. You've already mentioned my favourite Ghosts and Goblins. There isn't really a death sequence in Outrun, but the sequence where you hit something and the car spins, you know, and in the air, and then they're both sitting on the ground and the girl's shouting at him and all of that sort of stuff. That's fun. And Metal Slug has that arcade fluid graphic type thing, you know, where the animation is the thing. It's not the graphics being super wow, but the animation is just so slick that there's a couple of death sequences in there, you know, where the soldiers are set on fire and all of that sort of stuff. I think those would be my top ones, Wee Bob Art, and thanks very much for that question. That'd probably be one for LFC as well, you know, to do top 5 death sequences in an arcade game. You know, that might work, mightn't it? Then we get to Robert's Retro Gaming. This is listed here as me not replying. Let's put, Del, I did catch up with your logs, but I'm listening to it while commuting. Oh, that's fine, Robert, don't worry. If you want those sweet, sweet advertising dollars, you're going to have to start mentioning who sells you and who grew those oranges for you. I'll tell you what, that's a good answer. I am thirsty, so I'm going to have a sip of product. You can get these oranges at Robert's Retro Gaming. They are a they are $1 for 4. I'm sure you can do a special deal if you want, and he'll send an invoice to you. I have a strong desire to see you in a Marvel bandana. Yeah. And if you pick up or someone sends you some Hulk underpants, we'll expect you to model those as well. I don't think there's a camera that would be able to get the underpants in focus, to be quite honest, Robert. I am that inclined. I don't know what to say. And I'm going to have to finish watching later. Ta-ta for now. Oh, so, right. So there's no question. Not a problem, Robert. I'm just so glad you watched. That's great. That's the reason why I answer comments and then they don't appear in my list. But if I don't answer them, they're there. And he left a message to say that he was coming back. So, not a problem, Roy. Honest. Fantastic for that. Thank you. And we get to Steve's Gaming. Steve, whoa, the new look is cool and professional looking, very flash. Thanks for the great answer to my question. By the way, NASA themselves call Apollo 13 their successful failure because, like you said, they learned so much from it. Yeah. I have an admission now. You're going to hate me, but I don't like Frasier. I'm not going to hate you, Steve, for not liking Frasier. I totally get it. I think that one's more people like it than hate it, but it is a bit snobbish. It is a bit petty sometimes. It's not sophisticated in certain episodes, and then in other episodes it's so up its own backside that it can be stifling, I suppose. I'll agree with that, but for the most part I can watch those over and over again, Steve, but that's each to their own, isn't it? I laughed at you mentioning the RTX 3060 Ti. That's the GPU in my PC now. Yes, it's not cutting edge, but I'm very happy with it indeed. Yes, I just want to mention that I mentioned that graphic card because the 3060 Ti, and it has to be the Ti model because it has a overclock ability on it, is my happy medium. They consider graphic cards in the 70 range, 3070, 3080, 3090, in that range to be top end. When you get to the 3060, you're right at the top of the middle, and then you've got the ones below it, the 30s, the 40s, and so forth. The Ti just happens to be the happy medium that I'd go with, and I do tend to find that if you buy a graphic card as high up as the 70 range, the 80 range, the 90 range, whether it be in the 4000 series, the 3000 series, the 2000 series, your monitor then becomes the startling omission in your arsenal of having great graphics. Because now you'll want to upscale to 4K gaming, or you'll want to have 14:4, 14:4 resolution and so forth, rather than 1080p. So we've got to think to yourselves, 1080p is no slouch, and it looks great. So I still stick with the guns, 3060i. Now a question. The 2023 Formula 1 season is here, and my question is twofold. Which Formula 1 non-champion driver of the past would you have liked to win a title? Mine is, oh God, all these bloody foreigners. Francois Cavert, yeah, I know it's Cavert. And two, on today's drivers, which driver would you like to win the title in this year, and why is it Alonso? Yeah, so in other words, the answer obviously is Alonso to win it this year. But what really is my choice? Okay, yeah. My father introduced me to Formula 1 and told me the stories of Stirling Moss. And later on, I found out that he never actually won the Formula One championship. He won races, but didn't actually win the championship. I think if I wanted to rewrite history, I'd have liked Sterling Moss to have won the championship. But if I was to go back a bit, go back just a little bit back from where we are now, I probably would say that David Coulthard I'd have liked to have seen win. He did. He got so close. That's the thing. And you see the races and you see him win, and then the next one, and it got very tight with him sometimes. And then to fall off at the end, and then retire knowing that you were never a champion. I think that must affect him quite a bit. Now this is going to be an obscure, well, not an obscure one, but Martin Brundle is one of my favourite presenters because I think he does a great job. And I know that he was very Marmite as a driver. I think I'd have liked to have seen him win the championship. He had a disastrous crash, if I remember rightly, where he broke both his ankles and in a race, and they said that he wouldn't be able to race again, but managed to come back. I find that a very sad story. I don't remember that crash. I must go back and look that up. But yes, I'd like to see Alonso win this year. If I didn't see Alonso win this year, I'd like to see George Russell win. Not because I'm a big Mercedes fan, although I am. I do like Mercedes. It's just that he's come on in leaps and bounds. We saw how good he was in a Mercedes car when he wasn't actually racing for Mercedes. And just because of a problem in that race, I think it was a tyre issue, or was it a bad tyre choice, stopped him from winning in that car without even actually driving it. You know, it actually been in training for about 2 days for that race, if I remember rightly. So yeah, I'd choose George Russell, and I hope that answers your question for you, Steve. Thank you very much. Salute to you. I'll do my standard salute. And we go, thank you very much. Keep up the good work. You know I really look forward to your stuff that's coming up on your channel. And we're not doing too badly, I don't think, at the moment. What do we do now? I usually do my watched on YouTube. Yes, I ought to have a little band of music or something that goes, watched on YouTube, yeah, yeah, watched on YouTube, yeah, yeah, or something like that, you know, just to introduce the next section. So what have I watched on YouTube this week? So I watched This Week in Retro. Yes, they talked a little bit in This Week in Retro on mental health and nostalgia, and there was a cease and desist from Sega on printing a book that was for charity, which I felt a bit sad about. Yes, mental health is obviously something I'm quite big on. Obviously, I monitor my own mental health. I've already said, is sometimes looking back at nostalgia a bad thing? And I've mentioned it. I think I've got a happy balance at the moment. As I go back into work, it definitely will balance more. So looking forward to that developing this year. But it was a nice, interesting article. So a better watch this week, I think, for This Week in Retro. And then we've got my Techmoan favourite channel, where he talks about bygone hi-fi and camera equipment. This time it was the Panasonic RX2700. Now, if you don't know what that is, it's basically a portable tape deck with speaker, and it's around about the size of a Walkman before the Walkman was even invented. Yes, so he started to talk about the fact that we could have had a Walkman by other companies as early as 1968, I think he said. Now, in 1968, there was the exact same dimensions and image of a Walkman that you could buy, only it didn't have stereo headphones. It had, if I remember rightly, he said it had a jack out for you to plug it into something else. So there was no headphones. And then later on, Sony came up with the idea of putting a headset and a stereo head in the tape deck. And hey presto, the Walkman was born. But just think about it. That's 1980, 81, 82, somewhere around there, the Walkman. In 1968, all the other companies could have brought out a Walkman. That's a huge amount of time when you consider how fast technology moves forward. And I think to myself, wow, just thinking, what would the Walkman have been the success it was if it had been out of the hands of Sony and with Panasonic or Pioneer or all the others? Anyway, he showed off the RX 2700. He tried to fix it because the belts had gone on it, and it was a major disaster. There was no way that you could change the belts on this device. It was just, you had to unsolder too much, you had to remove screws too much, and when you actually got to the point where you could put the belts back in, it wouldn't fit back together again. A crying shame. But he said the one good thing about it is now that you know this, you know that if you're going to buy one on eBay, one of these Panasonic RX 2700s, don't buy a broken one, because even though there are belt kits out there for you to buy, you'll never be able to fix it, not in your lifetime. And that's something for us all to learn, really. Now, then I watched LGR because he brought out a video on a web computer that was basically like I think it was a 486, that was designed just for you to go on the web with, but it had the Commodore branding on it. It had a chip in there for it to play Commodore 64 games. It had an emulator, I believe, inbuilt in, and just a floppy drive on the right hand side. And he got it running, put some games in, they all worked fine for the Commodore 64 emulation, and he got Doom running on it, which everybody tries to do, don't they? If you ever get a piece of tech, then they always do that. It came with a stylus, so it had a GEOS operating system on it, of a sort. I think he said it was Windows 3.1 actually. So here was this 486 keyboard, no bigger than a keyboard, with just the outputs at the back, a floppy disk on the right, integration to Commodore 64, and only for you to go on the internet and surf the web with. Not bad. I didn't know about it. I know that there were obviously lots of web-based stuff that came out, but I ignored it all because I had a PC. But would I have bought that just for the Commodore 64 side of things? Do you know what? I might have done that. The picture looked immense. Really was nice. So that's a good watch, LGR. And then I watched a bloke called Soft Drink TV, that's his channel name, do the Fall of Electronic Arts Fight Night series. As you know, I've been talking about boxing a little bit, and he's quite right. When Fight Night Championship came out, which was the last game after Fight Night 4, there was no more. No more Fight Nights. It was one of their top franchises. In fact, it's one that made only the second amount of money next to FIFA. And all of a sudden stops. And he did some research and he found most of it was because of greedy boxers, to be quite honest. The engine was good. They were adding things every year. But every time you went up to a boxer and you said, would you like to be on the box art? Would you like to be in the game and your likeness? They asked for more money. And the rewards then diminish. If you have to give that much money out and you're getting a little bit more money for the game sale, your dividend return is reduced to the point where it's just not worth doing anymore. And it's a shame. That's why it turned into one of those UFC championship games. So boxing stopped and it turned into one of those cage type fighting events, because they don't require as much money to feature on the box art and so forth. So yeah, killed their own market really. And that's all I watched on YouTube, guys. But I'm just going to mention a few things on what I watched of your stuff, because as you know, I watch everything that you guys do. So, LFC Gamer and Vlogs. Wow, you've been busy. Bloody hell. So, you did a couple of blogs on PC game music, movie tie-in games, music in your head, um, all sorts of blogs, and even your top 5 of track sequences. I'm not sure if that was the week before, though. Anyway, very busy guy. Answered one of my questions, and I gave him another question. I would have liked my second question to actually have been in the blog itself, because I asked him, because he's into football. I'll tell you what the question was. What are your top 3 football chants when you go to an actual live football game? And I told him what my one was when I went to the Coventry games. I think it's really good when somebody interacts with the camera. But he gave me some 3 great answers, although again they were a bit standardised, like I'm forever blowing bubbles is well known West Ham. I'm talking about a chant where they're sort of poking fun at the other side. So my favourite chant, if you wanted to know, was they look in the dustbins for something to eat, they find a dead rat and they think it's a treat, down in the, and then you put in the football team's home. No swear words in it or anything, but it's so rowdy when you go to a football game. If a player comes on and say, the referees are wet, you know what I mean. There are swear words in some of them, but I'm pretty sure that I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles is a good chant, but it's not funny. Not as funny as some of the others. So maybe he'll come back to that one, I don't know. 20th Century Gaming, he did a live stream of the game Soulless, which I've never heard of until I saw the stream. That was great. 20th Century Gaming, fantastic, always worth a watch when he's on. His gaming skills are phenomenal. I wish I could get as far as that. I think I did. I'll take it like this. I'm happy on how far I got in Bruce Lee. I ended it early because it was those videos were supposed to be 10 or 15 minutes long, and when I looked at it, I was going, bloody hell, I've gone 20 minutes. I better stop. But if somebody is going to put the time in to show you how far they can get, and you see how far this guy gets, my God, definitely worth it. Steve's Gaming. What can we say about Steve? Steve. Fantastic Steve's Gaming. Always, he's doing his top all-time favourites. He put one in late last night, and I haven't got around to watching it all. I do apologise, Steve, but when you put in a video that's an hour and a half long, there you go. Just like you can say the same for mine now, can't you? But he did the Game Boy one, and I watched that. That was immense fun. It's harder for when you get to the more popular ones, or the ones that you've got more nostalgic value with, because you'll want to play the games that you're actually trying to demonstrate is your favourite. So you'll tend to go, oh yeah, I'll go all the way till I die. Well, if you're good at the game, you're going to be there for 10 or 15 minutes. You got 10 of these games, go figure. Definitely worth a watch. I can't find one bad thing in it so far. Obviously, I would do it differently, but that's just because we're 2 different people. But that's a fantastic thing to watch. Definitely go and watch that. Mainmeister did his 9 horizontal shooters that you must play on the Commodore 64, and I always find these a joy, because sometimes if you go back to something that you've already done, a new one will be slotted in. In this particular instance, I don't think he'd done 9 horizontal shooters in the 10 years that he's been on YouTube. Yes, fellas, he's been there that long, and he's still coming up with new content, and you've got to salute for that one. Salute, Colonel. And that was definitely worth a watch. Now, Down the Rabbit Hole did an Atari 2600 game called Dragon Descent, which looked a little bit like Adventure. It looked like a good fun. I like going back to the Atari 2600 days. I don't do it enough. In fact, because I do my 8-bit years, it might be something that I'm going to pick up. and and show you just how bad I was on those games as well. That's definitely worth a watch. Robert's Retro Gaming is always worth a watch. Now, he's done Pitfall, which is an absolute stonking classic. So that's a must watch, because not only is he showing it, but he's also giving you feedback on why the levels are mapped out the way they are. They are not the top and the bottom half of the screen, which has got two sort of like distinct areas, are not intertwined with each other. It's a weird way of coding. I just about got my head around it later on in life. Never got my head around it when I was an 8 and 9-year-old boy. Could never understood it. And then, of course, Ponder has done his blog. I love Ponder to death. Everything that goes on in his life is riveting. He even brings in some technical support and things that he's going to try, and that's absolutely fantastic. So then we get to what I've watched on TV. So I've watched The Last of Us Season 1 Episode 7, which sort of got talked about earlier, because we were talking a little bit about homosexuality in a TV series. This one, The Last of Us, I think is going a little bit too far in that. I've got no problems with it being there. The story is great. I'm loving the series. Every episode is a masterclass of how something needs to be written. It's just sometimes I think some things are in your face or forced in your face. It's now starting to head that way, and we're not quite at the end yet. Now, I said last week The Mandalorian started, and it has. And I've watched episode 1, and I quite enjoyed it. There's always that moment of, oh, I'm so glad it's back. It started off with a action sequence, as I expected it. It was a fantastic action sequence. We then started to get into the story, and there is that slight cliffhanger that you have, that ekes you into the second episode or moves on. Great to watch. Definitely one if you've got Disney Plus. Watch that. Great.
I didn't understand that.
Okay. Then we mentioned earlier on that Denny said that he was watching Picard. I watched that last night. I've started to get caught up, you see, and I watched all 3 episodes, one after the other, and I then worked into the night prepping this blog. So there I was, supposed to be prepping the blog, and I was watching Picard, and what can I say about it, really? I think I deserved that night watching that. I ordered a pizza with... I bought my mum some potato wedges with barbecue sauce. It's her favourite from when I order a pizza. And I had a blast watching all 3 episodes. Really liked it. And then, of course, this weekend it's been Formula 1. So I've been watching the practice, I've been watching the qualifying, and today it is race day. So I'm looking forward to that this afternoon, along with watching Mainmeister do his live gameplay that he does on a Sunday evening. And then we just talk about my stuff. So as you know, I did my blog last week. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked the new format. I hope the frame flipping wasn't too much of a disruption to you, because it's certainly got on my nerves. But I can't watch the whole thing again before uploading it. I just look at the camera like I am now, not the camera, the live stream, just to see if I'm okay. Trouble is, when I'm looking at the camera, it looks like I'm talking to you. If I do this and look up there, it doesn't. It looks like I'm talking to God. So I'm starting to do a happy balance with that. And then I did my Bruce Lee video, which I hope you guys watch. It is a labour of love doing my gameplay ones. And we reach really the end of the blog, other than 2 things, isn't there? Which is usually what I bought this week, or a topic. Yes, I think we'll have a topic, shall we? Not a topic in the way that I'm going to talk about it. I am just going to play some videos in sequence and then talk about the nostalgia aspect of it all. So we'll go to my media playback and we'll start these off. I'm going to just mute the microphone while you watch these 5 in a row videos.
Spartacus, rah, rah, rah. Spartacus, rah, rah, rah. Enjoy, sweetheart, enjoy. Spartacus, rah, rah, rah.
Get the big taste of Wessler's hot dogs. Bite after bite after bite. Big tasting Westlers. Get them where you see this brand.
Just one cornetto, give it to me. Delicious ice cream of Italy. Dinner and chocolate dream. Give me cornetto, the world's ice cream.
The Taste of India. Experience the taste of India.
The Regency Tandoori Restaurant. Private functions catered for. Takeaway service available.
The taste.
Yes. So not really a topic, but I did a blog a couple of weeks ago talking about adverts. And I said how much I loved doing them. And then I started to think about, well, what about the adverts that you saw in the cinema? And then all of a sudden, my brain just goes off in another tangent and it goes, oh yeah, Pearl and Dean, Butter Kissed, Wessler's Hot Dogs, and all of those independent sort of like adverts that were for your local businesses, which is where the Taste of India comes from. Because what I didn't realise until much later on was the Taste of India was a conglomerate of Indian restaurants that every town has got one in, but all matched under each one, and then basically you put your own business in the end credit at the end. So there I was thinking it was the Indian restaurant in my hometown, and actually it's probably somewhere in London. But if you're in your own Odeon or cinema, it would have your own local Indian restaurant in there. I don't know if I've worded that quite well. The Westlers one was a difficult one because my Westlers advert that I saw was that exact one, but at the end it would say in the foyer now. And this one was wherever you see the Westlers brand. So I think that was more the American one. Everybody remembers the Walls Cornetto advert and its many mimics that it did of itself. And Butterkissed, well, what can you say? In the 70s, I always wanted toffee coated popcorn. Later on, I preferred salted or buttered popcorn. Now I find toffee popcorn well too sweet. And I thought that was quite a nice thing to end on because, as you know, I love nostalgia. I love the adverts, and there are many more, I'm sure, out there that you guys can think of that you saw in the cinema, as well as the trailers to the films. And maybe I'll come back to this as a topic one day. But Pearl and Dean, I don't think anybody did not see that Pearl and Dean intro, which was supposed to be all under the Pearl and Dean banner. So, not what I bought this week. Robert mentioned about bandanas and things. Well, I haven't really got bandanas to show you, but there are things that I've bought through the years. So I've bought Spider-Man ties. What else have I got here? I've got a Hulk transforming from Bruce Banner to the Hulk. That's a tie. There's a Mark Bagley Spider-Man, or is it Eric Larson? Can't tell from this side. No, it's Mark Bagley. Oh God. A Venom tie. These were all because I used to work in banks. So basically, I bought ties. I never wore these, by the way, in the bank. There's a Silver Age comic cover tie. How garish is that? What else we got? Oh, yeah, an Amazing Fantasy 15 tie. Front cover of Spider-Man, that is. I think this one's an Avengers. Yeah. That or just a Marvel Heroes. Ooh, a Doctor Doom. That's an unusual one. Doctor Doom from the Fantastic Four. Oh, it could go on and on and on. Look, look, look. I've still got all those to go through if I wanted to do it. I have got a bag just like this, I'm sad to say, of bandanas. And I don't wear bandanas. But maybe I'll show you one day. And then I'm just going to touch upon another little subject, is that the original special that I was going to do, by the way, for the year anniversary blog, was that I went to the States and did what they call the Star Trek adventure. So I went to Universal Studios, Paramount, and you could actually star in a Star Trek episode. So they took bits and pieces of, I think, the second and third Star Trek films, and they green screened you in, so that it looked like that you were talking to McCoy and Uhura and Chekhov. I think they were the three that you could talk to, and developed a story around it and use the music. I am in that with my girlfriend back in 1991. It is in NTSC, it is in tape format. I could convert it to digital, and I could then show you a 15-minute episode of me playing Captain Kirk in the Star Trek adventure. Now, just to tell you, it probably is on YouTube. There's probably tons of them. I haven't looked. Through the Rabbit Hole will tell you that this is a thing. It really was a thing. You could actually dress up as Laurel and Hardy and go around all the rides. I did the Star Trek adventure. I could do that. I don't know. The jury's out. And then we'll just end on what I bought this week. So what happened this week, I bought Rocky on Steelbook, which the jury's out on at the moment. It's in 4K, it's a Steelbook, but apparently there are some problems with the audio on it. I sort of discovered it after it arrived this week. The second one arrives tomorrow. These things are, some people are considering them small problems. Others are turning around and saying there shouldn't be a problem at all. I don't know if there's going to be a recall. I doubt it. I can probably just make a decision. I'll keep the ones that I really, really want, and I'll wait until they correct them in the next box set, which will probably be in a year's time. And then, of course, my good friend Denny sent me a present. He wanted to thank me, and he bought Dawn of the Dead for me, the new release of Dawn of the Dead. This is the 2020, what was it? 2004, I think it was, yeah. Version of it. And we've come to the end of my blog. What can I say? Thank you so much for sticking with me, listening to my waffle. I hope there is less technical problems this time. And you'll continue to watch this next week coming. Maybe I'll have a new topic. Maybe I'll do something different. Maybe there's something there that you'd like to see me try and do. I just hope it's been fun. And with that, salute, and thank you very much, guys. Bye-bye.